Hello, guys. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. So I want to start off by saying I miss you all and hope everybody's doing well. And if you're reaching out to me with questions, this is another one of those ones that I have to record on Monday, March 16th. So I'm not sure exactly when you're going to be watching this, but just wanted to put that out there and make sure that I can use the smart board to draw some things up for you guys. But please be reaching out with questions about, what help you need and things like that, okay? Today we're moving on to a different economic measurement, and that measurement is inflation. I know you guys have probably heard of inflation before, so it's not too crazy hard. The way it's calculated is a little tricky, although I'm going to really simplify it down and actually take some things out of what I usually do to try to help you since we're doing this online, okay? So let's start first with what inflation actually is. Okay, so inflation is a sustained rise in the level of prices. Okay, what that means is that this is not, the gas goes up one day. This is not, something's on sale or something comes off sale. This is across the economy. A wide range of products are now costing more money. Okay. Now, with this, I put on there what inflation really does is erodes purchasing power. Now, I do want to make that a little bit more description, so you might want to add this. It basically lowers the value of the dollar, right? The dollar used to be able to buy you a candy bar, okay? But as inflation happens, now the dollar can only buy you half of a candy bar or whatnot, okay? So it's not that money is suddenly worth less. $1 is still worth $1. $5 is worth $5, right? The difference is what those things can buy. And you guys know this. You've probably heard your grandparents talk about, oh, back in the day, we used to be able to buy candy for a nickel, and now candy's $1. Well, that's inflation. It's not that a nickel is suddenly less than 5 cents. It's that 5 cents doesn't buy you anywhere near what 5 cents used to buy you. We're going to talk more about the effects of inflation in the next video, but for this one, we're going to really focus on the consumer price index and the way we actually measure inflation. So the way we measure inflation is through something called the CPI. It stands for the Consumer Price Index. Okay, it is our national measurement for inflation. Basically, what the CPI says is it takes the market basket. So they take all sorts of items, a gallon of gas, a loaf of bread, a pound of apples, a pound of ground beef, a roll of paper towels. It's things that every American tends to buy. They even get as far as things like, a new car or a, set of tires. And there's all sorts. There's hundreds of items in this market basket. I want you to imagine as if they're going through the grocery store and just putting these things in a cart. Okay? As they get to the end of the grocery store, and they go up to the grocery store clerk, the clerk has to take the basket, right, their shopping cart, and they ring up the price. Okay? Well, they use the exact same market basket for every single month since the 1920s. Now, that is a little bit exaggerated, but we'll roll with it. So every single month, they are buying the exact same products. And they compare what happens to pay for all of those things in the shopping cart and compare it to how much it used to cost last month, last year, 10 years ago, etc. Okay? Now, there is some math that is involved. They make it a proportion, and they always compare it to the years of 1982 to 1984. So they take the average of those years, and they give those years the value of 100. Okay? The CPI is essentially a proportion. Right? So they assign the 1980s there as the base year, the 100. And ever since then, they have compared where we are at compared to 1980 to 1984. Okay? Today, our CPI is over the hundreds. It's over now up to the mid 200s, I believe, where obviously prices have very much so increased since the 1980s. Now, what we normally do is I normally make you figure out how they calculate it, although because we're doing this remotely, that's going to be kind of hard. So if you see the slide there in your notes of like the gallon of milk, the pound of apples, the gallon of gas, we are just going to skip that entirely. We're just going to trust the experts will give us the CPI. What I want you to do, though, is be able to use the CPI. And that is what really this slide comes in on the following page, where we actually look and we can see how the CPI uses, how we use the CPI to actually calculate inflation. It's everybody's favorite formula, new minus old over old. Okay? So the CPI is set up that you can use these market basket costs and you can determine what the inflation rate is across the country. Okay? Now, this measurement is not perfect. Here's why. The number of items in the market basket is limited. They don't put every single item in the shopping cart. Okay? So the CPI is just an estimate. It's an idea of kind of the basics of what's happening to prices. You could, for example, have a market basket that says inflation's going up, whereas really there could be items whose prices are still going down. But the market basket is just our general estimate of it. So when we use the CPI of the market baskets, we're going to take the CPI in the second year we're studying, the new year, subtract it minus the old year, divide it by the old year, and then I don't know why that didn't come out real well, and then multiply that times 100. Okay? So let's do an example. Okay? If you could please write these numbers down, 2009, 2010, 2011. Okay? Those are the actual CPI, so I went and looked them up. Those are the actual CPI of each of those years. Okay? Now, let me get this up. And so with that, when we do this, okay, we're just going to do new minus old over old. So let's try and find the inflation rate in 2010. Okay? The new CPI is the year we are studying. So that is 2010. So we're going to take their CPI, which is 218, minus the old CPI, the CPI of the year before, which is 214, and divide it by the old CPI, which is 214, and all of this times 100. Okay, so 218 minus 214 is 4, so you take 4 divided by 214, multiply it by 100, and you should get an inflation rate of 1.87. Okay, and that is a percentage. So that means during 2010, prices generally across the economy increased 1.87%. Okay? Now let's look at 2011. In 2011, we take the new CPI of 224 minus the old CPI of 2010, which is 218, divided by the old CPI of 218, and all that multiplied by 100. When you do that, you should get 6 over 218, which let me make sure my math is correct. 6 divided by 218 ends up times 100 being 2.75%. So you can tell that inflation was higher in 2011 than it was in 2010. And this is really ultimately what we can use CPI for. Now, there are some other moves for it where we can use CPI to actually figure out how much something used to cost back in the day. So I could use these measurements and say, how much was $1 worth back then? We'll see. I might get to that. Might make that an assignment. Like I said, I'm doing this weeks in advance right now, so I got to kind of see where we're at. But this is really what I want you to take away, is being able to calculate how much inflation has happened. So in 2011, prices rose 2.75%. Okay? I think that's where we're going to leave off. Let me make sure. Yep, that's where we'll leave off. So thank you guys for your attention. I miss you all. I hope you're all doing well. Remember, I care about you and hope that everybody's being safe and enjoying your time off, but being successful. Okay, so thank you guys for your attention, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.